Hi,
Hello,
everyone. Welcome
Shazreen.
to Hi, hi, Tony.
Hi, nice to see you.
Hello, everyone else out there. Welcome to Water Think Tank. Water Think Tank was initiated to create a space to explore and discuss past experiences, current approaches, innovations, and future needs related to the water ecosystem in a broad sense of definition. Technology Thursday, the show today, focuses on various types of design and application of product systems and equipment in relation to the water ecosystem with researchers, designers, and technologists focusing on the new discoveries and scientific advancements. Today, we have with us Tony, and Tony will talk about his personal journey as the inventor of a solar-powered water purifier and the process of developing it. So many people will be interested in invention and entrepreneurship. They will be able to take something useful from his story. So a bit of introduction on Tony. Tony opened his architecture business in 2009 in Florida and has pursued this part of his career in the same area since 1999. He has dedicated his time and talents to various leadership roles in the local United States Green Building Council over the years. Tony holds a patent for the solar-powered water purifier and is the startup founder of Fount Systems educational videos. All right, Tony. So we can't wait to hear about the invention, but maybe we can start with talking about Fount Systems. I mean, how did that come about?
Fount Systems is a social media and branding concept for the pursuit of low carbon innovations for industrial wastewater treatment. And I started Fount Systems really in response to some of the story that I'm going to share with you today. The process really started in 2014 with my rushing into the invention and patenting of a solar-powered water purifier. And because of what I learned along the way, I started Fount Systems. So Fount Systems right now exists as a social media effort, as I described. It is a YouTube channel, and I also have Twitter handle, and I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And through those three outreach and communication methods, I'm producing original content of me researching and learning about water and right now industrial wastewater treatment methods. By educating myself and producing educational content, it supports the development of that brand, the pursuit of low carbon innovations for industrial wastewater treatment.
Okay, you used the word rushing into. I mean, there's a story behind that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was going to share that. I have a kind of two parts to the presentation today. The first is, the billing for our discussion here today, which is the development process and the mistakes I've made along the way. And then the second part is less a presentation. I have a bit of an outline, and it's more about what I did in response to what I had learned along the way. So I do think of it as a mistake, and I can kind of get into that and share that with you a little out of sequence, though. I feel like it would be nice to kind of because it's Technology Thursday, I wanted to put the technology front and center at the beginning, just so we could kind of bring the conversation around the tech first and then see how I interacted with it to try and develop both the technology, the device itself, but also the IP along the way. So I don't know if Punita can, if you're ready, Raja, I'm sorry to just take over your show. Do you want to watch the video? Are you okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Punita, yeah. We're looking at a time lapse of an initial proof of concept from 2015. This is a solar powered water purifier. And it is also the kind of term of art is a solar still. And maybe Punita, you can repeat the video again. What you're seeing there is a basin that holds impure water. And as the sun warms it up over the course of the day, the water evaporates and separates, and the vapor condenses on the underside of the cover. And then the cover and the collection system enable the collection of the purified water.
It's both simple and genius, Tony. So I really
Oh,
like the concept.
you're very complimentary there. Thank you. So solar stills, they're not new. They're a very old approach to water purification. And just to bring the audience on board, they work because of evaporative distillation. If you're not aware, the ocean, lakes, rivers, over the course of the day, the sun shines on them, and the water, some of that water in those water bodies evaporates and leaves that water body as vapor. It condenses overhead as clouds and eventually comes down as rain again. And that is nature's process for purifying water. It's as old as the atmosphere that we currently have on planet Earth. And solar stills, as a technology, they really capture and they internalize that natural process within them. And so there have been many stills patented and attempts made to bring them to market over literally the decades. And so when I initially developed it, when I initially came up with the concept, I really, I did an initial quick search into whether there were similar products. And then I did my patent search, and there were many that have been patented. So what's unique about this solar still, that what I call the Fount module, is the simplicity of the configuration. And without getting into a lot of detail on other solar stills and other forms of the art, this particular configuration has not been patented before. And so that's why I earned the patent.
Okay. And you were also involved in a competition by the Department of Environment. So how did that go?
The Department of Energy.
Department of Energy, sorry.
In 2020 and in 2021, what they call the Solar Desalination Prize. And that's actually had a strong influence on the trajectory of my work. And they are supporting startup companies with novel technologies that incorporate solar thermal energy, not photovoltaic, but solar thermal energy, as an energy input in a water purification process. In 2020, they were focused on desalination, and it was a little less defined in terms of the scope of their interest. And in 2021, they were very focused on produce water from oil and gas operations. And so there, in 2020, I think there were 18 companies that made it through the innovation rounds into the quarterfinals. And then this year in 2021, there were 12. My Fount Systems array was not chosen, but nonetheless, it's been an educational process, and there will be, and I'll do some announcements on this on LinkedIn. They do what's called the teaming contest. So the next phase in that competition will be putting together teams, kind of as a networking and recruitment effort to build these quarterfinalist teams for their next round, which is the teaming phase. So the Solar Desalination Prize has been part of my effort to develop the technology, and we'll see about 2022.
Okay, and I noticed the initial focus was getting the water, and somewhere along the lines, then you relabeled it as a water purification system, and I feel that now you are exploring into effluent treatment, for wastewater treatment. So what drove the change?
So this is really where we get into the story a little bit more, and maybe I can share my screen, and I have some visual material here that will support the story, and we will do the entire screen. So I'm going to start with the patent. In 2014, I came up with the idea. I had it kind of as a mental image. As an architect, I'm able to actually imagine things pretty vividly. And I've built a lot of furniture over the years. And so it's kind of, when I exercise, and I actually came up with the idea while I was exercising, I kind of just come up with stuff to think about, and it's usually some kind of thing I'm designing. And the idea for the water purifier came to me, and I didn't jump on it right away. And then, but sometimes things come back, and then I thought maybe I have something here. And then I came home and I started researching solar powered water purifiers or solar stills. And I didn't see a lot of products on the market. There were, and I did it pretty quickly. Maybe I spent a couple hours on it, and that was encouraging. And then I started learning about patents, because that's what you do, right? You come up with an idea and then you patent it. So I would call this the first mistake I made, was rushing into a patent. And I'll tell you why I think that was a mistake in a minute. But I started researching the patents, and I found that solar stills are a very robust field of investigation and endeavor. And there were about 600 patents just within that, what they call a subclass, dating back, some of the early ones from the 1880s, but it really became very robust after the 1970s, which was, the oil crisis in the United States. And so I think that really got people thinking about the limits of fossil fueled energy, and you start really seeing a proliferation of solar powered water purifiers. When I was going through the patent research, I didn't see anything like what I had in mind. And so that was encouraging also. And I talked with my family, and they were on board with it and supportive. And so we hired the patent attorney, and we went to apply, and then they do their research and they reconfirmed that, yes, they think it can be patented. And then we went to patent this older initial concept. And what we're looking at here is a basin. And then you see that same cover. But then I had this kind of hokey rack that hung inside the basin with a collection cup, which is totally unnecessary. And then a funnel, which transmits the condensate out of the basin. So that's why I call that a mistake. I went to patent with the first initial, what you'd call in architecture, a diagram. And within a year, I realized that I could simplify it greatly if I took that whole rack and that funnel system out of the interior, and I just had a collection tube that penetrates the sidewalls of the basin. And that simplifies it, and that reduced the cost of manufacture. And again, you're trying to get it simpler. So that first patent costs money, and then when you make a change to it, you file a continuation in part, and so that added probably a year and much more money to the process. And what I'm showing you here is not even the most state-of-the-art version of it. So I can't even show you the most state-of-the-art version of it, because you cannot, by definition, disclose it publicly. The patent office really has to be the first people who see it in order for you to have the rights to your trade secrets. And so we put a lot of money into the initial patent. We put more money into the continuation in part, and I continued to develop the device. And I'm not in the mood for putting more money into the patent without understanding the market. So that would be really the what I would describe as the first mistake that I made there, is really rushing to patent. And so I can kind of keep going, Shazran. Do you want me to?
Yeah. So what goes through your mind? I'm just wondering, because I do have a lot of ideas in my mind as well, but it never occurred to me to let's file a patent. Let's get a patent lawyer and file a patent. So I'm just wondering, what clicked in your mind? You have an idea, and what drove you to get a patent? I mean, were you thinking of commercializing it or selling the idea?
Yes. Well, partially, I would say there were a few different things going through my mind, so different criteria. One was, it was just a leap of faith. Two, there's a lot of lore in the United States about inventors coming up with a great idea and then selling the idea or licensing the idea. And so those were my initial ideas at the beginning, was someone would find this valuable and buy it from me. The third criteria is I'm interested in finding ways to use solar energy to enhance people's well-being and dignity and health. And so that really is a strong contributing factor with me wanting to try and bring this thing to life. But the patent is, I would say, it's almost like American culture, American subculture. I don't know what else. It was a very strong impulse, though.
So it's an American thing, like coffee.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I didn't stop at the patent, but I'll tell you what, once I made that investment, it was a big motivator to continue the effort. And so I came up with the concept in 2014, and I really have been pursuing it since, because I want to try to have that initial investment come to fruition. So I'll show you another example here. This is another early prototype. The first version you saw was kind of a proof of concept, just about whether it would work. This is what I call the water quality prototype. And this version has a glass cover. And if you're looking for measuring the performance of water quality at output, then the glass cover is the way you maximize that water quality. I have concerns about the plastic cover. As an architect, we learn that plastics degrade when exposed to sunshine due to ultraviolet. I'm not a materials engineer, but the glass cover was really the way to just try and maximize the performance. And so this is what I call the water quality prototype. And in 2017, I employed a third-party water quality testing lab, and I wanted to see how well the water purifier performs. And the short answer is, in my opinion, very well. Let me describe what you're looking at here. This is a chart showing water quality results from that testing. I have the baseline sample in that middle columm. I have the contaminant itself in the left column. And then I have the output. I have the results in the right-hand column. And what I did is I took pond water from my adjacent to my house, and then I contaminated the pond water with gasoline, with motor oil, and with insecticide. So down at the bottom, you'll see oil and grease, gas range organics, and glyphosate. Those are those contaminants that I was describing to you. The ones near the top are more organic. And what we're seeing, and what was particularly encouraging, I don't want to go over the whole chart, but gas range organics is gasoline. And I knew it would be effective for dissolved minerals, dissolved solids, and for bacterial contamination, as it shows. But for volatile substances, I wasn't sure, because inasmuch as the water will evaporate and recondense, theoretically, volatile substances in the contaminated water would also evaporate and recondense. And what this test shows me, at least for gasoline in this scenario, that it reduced the gasoline by more than 99% from the baseline to the purified sample. And so I found that to be encouraging. Additionally, on glyphosate, which is the insecticide, I don't know how that behaves as far as whether it's volatile or not, but it exceeded the sensitivity of the test. So I also found that to be very encouraging. So what the testing I did there really confirmed to me that yes, it does work, and there can be applications for it. I have some more stuff I want to present. Do you want to stop me, Shazreen, and talk a little more?
Yeah, let's go into where do you think that this will be applicable? I mean, you and in what extent, or rather, what kind of size would you say it will be practical to have a working model, let's say to get water or even to speak water?
The short answer on part of your question regarding size, I think about 80 centimeters in diameter. But I think as far as where, I think it begs the question of markets. And I think it begs the question of who is going to pay for it, or who will pay for the services that can be derived from it. And that's really been the bigger question. And that's what I would put out there as my second mistake. And so I can share some more. I can share some more with you about what I'll call a platform technology. This is a more developed version of what my initial concepts were. initially I thought it would be a water purification device for household use. And I divided that really between wealthy consumers in the United States and Australia, and then people in rural and under-resourced settings, what you'd call rural development or development settings. On the wealthy consumer side, in the United States and Australia, there is a market of people who are moving out of cities, moving out of the suburbs, and really trying to live off the land. I don't know in a kind of, I don't know literally completely off the land, but there's definitely a move towards self-sufficiency. And so people get characterized as homesteaders or off-grid lifestyle, people pursuing an off-grid lifestyle, or even survivalists, who are really preparing for the impending collapse of civilization. I think those consumers, they have credit cards, right? And they have their motivations for why they would want a solar powered water purifier, and they would use it for drinking water. And I think it could be used for food dehydration. So that was kind of an initial idea I had for a market. Go,
Yeah.
Shachun,
So I noticed in all four groups you have the word arid. So do you think it will work in an environment like in Malaysia, where we're in the tropics? It's hot, so we qualify as hot, but we're not arid. So would it be useful in this region?
Every full solar day makes this device more feasible. And every day that it's overcast reduces its yield. And then every day that it's raining or snowing or wintry for sure, render it less and less effective. And so it really is a geographically limited device as far as being feasible. That doesn't mean someone in Minnesota wouldn't be some kind of hobbyist who wouldn't get a kick out of trying to use it in the summertime. But if we're really looking to maximize the value, then we'd want to maximize the yield from the device. And so that's why I'm calling out arid.
Well, what about in terms of cost? Have you done a comparison of how much water would cost coming from your invention and as opposed to the normal water treatment coming from the tap?
I do not have good data on that right now. It's a huge question that begs research and development investment. And so having only prototypes doesn't really get you there. The prototypes give you a proof of concept. They allow you to communicate the physical presence of it to other people. And they, like in the case of the water quality testing, they can show you the performance. On the yield side, I can also tell you some sense of what the yield would be, but there's a ratio of yield to unit dollar. And you really can't know what the unit dollar is until you know what this device would cost a consumer in a production environment. And that's the real trick. So we have the proof of concept and the prototypes. We need to develop the model, like the production model. And that's where you get your tooling together, your forms, your supply chains. And then, you get better pricing if you're buying 10,000 parts than if you're buying 100 parts. And so when you're asking about cost, really you want to be looking at what the retail device would be in an environment where you're selling tens of thousands of these. And so that's a long answer to your question, but it really the answer is I don't know. And I think that you have to, on one level, you can compare it to other options, and I think some consumers would compare it to other options that they have. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I don't know that they would go to yield per unit dollar. They'd probably take more considerations into it than that. Notably, the durability of this device versus, say, one that used filters, things like that. So it's a little more complicated question, and I think it gets to the question of value. It's not necessarily just about dollars. People have to look at more criteria, especially when we're looking at off-grid water purification. Look at more criteria besides just dollars, because it does beg the question of health, dignity, and survival. So
Tony, I was expecting you to say we're using the sun, the water is free.
Oh, well, the device is not free. The sun and the water are pretty low cost, but it's the device itself. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
have to change my messaging. The sun is free. Just change it.
Yeah, I was thinking that, oh, okay, but yeah, I mean, the idea is good, but in a practical kind of setting, what kind of complications would you expect? Would the degradation of the old materials from the sun, or would you have pest problems, or what would be the complications, the obvious complications?
The So there are, I guess I'll divide that into um, shipping, like getting it from point A to point B, and then maintenance and upkeep. And so on the shipping side, getting it from point A to point B does pose its challenges. If we're looking at an 80 centimeter diameter glass cover, that's going to have some mass to it. And it also has some degree of fragility. I think you would want to produce a heat strengthened part there, or if not tempered. And then the basin, I'm imagining right now as kind of a polymer fortified insulating concrete. Then the additional parts that would go in there would also be durable materials. I don't want to say too much, but all of those I see lasting probably 30 years, if not longer. But getting them to point A to point B is not as simple as just calling Amazon, for example. So I think there would be some shipping considerations there. On the maintenance and operations side, like ownership of it, you would occasionally need to clean out the basin where the contaminated water would go into it. The cover itself, conceptually, and I've not tested this like long-term in remote settings, conceptually, the underside of that cover where the condensate condenses is self-cleaning. So I don't think there's much maintenance to the underside of the cover, which is really the critical surface in there. The basin would need to be cleaned out. Over time, you put contaminated water in there, whatever kind of contaminated water it is. It will tend to evaporate and leave behind scale and minerals, which will tend to reflect solar energy back out, and or various sediments, colloidal materials, organic matter. So there would need to be some maintenance and cleaning of the basin itself. But after those trade-offs, let's say you get the device mobilized, and let's say you have some reasonable expectation that you're going to need to fill it on a daily basis, maybe every other day. I don't know what the right protocol is in the absence of R&D with the full scale model. But let's say you buy it with some expectation that you're going to fill it every day and you'll need to clean it periodically. It's probably dependent entirely on the water quality that you put in there. You are not going to need to purchase chemicals or filters. You're not going to have moving parts that you're going to need to replace. So I think it's what you would describe as a resilient device. It's not something that requires you to go to your hardware store twice a year or once every other year to buy replacement parts for it. It is conceived as a very durable device.
So a resilient device for resilient people, because there's some work involved, right? You need to take top off to clean the bowl.
Right.
Right. Okay. Have you tried it out? Do you have partners or demonstration sites where you've tried out product?
I only have my prototypes, and the full size model, the 80 centimeter diameter product, it's an industrial product. I can tell you. So the short answer is no, and I'll tell you partially why. If you're not already a manufacturer with business relationships with glass fabricators, metal fabricators, plastics fabricators, it's very hard to get their attention. And so I had to work really hard, for example, on that glass cover, or in that first version that you saw with the plastic cover, the acrylic cover. I really had to call a lot of people and nag a lot of people to get that done. So once I go to a full size model, really at that stage, I'm committing to industrial forms and supply chains, and I think that's what it needs, because there are some things that you cannot scale down. Notably, the thermal performance of it cannot be scaled down. It has because it actually you can scale down the parts, but you can't scale down the thermal performance. Does that make sense? So if the sidewall of that lightweight insulating concrete basin is 3 centimeters in the production model, then I need to keep it 3 centimeters in the scaled down version. But if I keep it 3 centimeters in the scaled down version, then I have a smaller basin. So my yields are not good. They're not good examples of what the yields would be in the production model. So the next step is really a significant investment in R&D for the production model. And so that will take a significant amount of money. And that's what I was trying to secure with the solar desalination prize. But yeah, some people have seen it. I have not, because of the market aspect of it. I have not found a convincing value proposition yet. And that's kind of where I'm at in the process. I think if I have a convincing value proposition, then I think it's easier to approach individual investors. But I also have different ideas about where I can get the money from. So it's not necessarily about bringing in private money. So yeah, that's a little bit more open-ended. Again, a long answer to your question, but
yeah, I think the based on our last conversation, we were all sort of interested to talk about using the purifier for treating water. So we are exploring. I think you're exploring some applications in terms of not just looking at it as something a device to produce water, but to treat contaminated water, right? So right. How is that coming along? I mean, are you looking at textile wastewater, or what kind of wastewaters would probably be suitable for this kind of treatment?
Again, the short answer is I don't know. I have started. There's a little more story. So where I started with drinking water, and I am not abandoning this kind of solar powered water purifier for wealthy consumers in hot, arid areas of the United States and Australia. I've not abandoned that, but I'm not prepared to jump on a consumer device because I really did not spend enough time thinking about markets and applications for it. That's really my focus now, is investigating markets, and why we've started talking about industrial wastewater. The water quality test that you saw there is as much information as I have as how it would perform for some contaminants on some types of water. But if you're asking me about leather tanneries or metal finishing operations or textile dyeing operations, I don't know how it would perform, or how it would be better than what people are using already. I expect it could be useful. But if I'm being honest, then the way to really say that with certainty is to have tested it on those specific water quality types, which I have not done.
Okay, so I think the other interesting aspect is when we're looking at your videos and picture, we always almost every time see just one piece of your purifier, but in practical sense, you will see a cluster of it working together, right?
Yes, I can show you. Let's see. I'm going to show you another PDF of a concept I had. This is really where I'm still kind of brainstorming about other markets. This is when I was imagining the device as a seawater desalination utility. And so where my YouTube channel started was, the pursuit of low carbon innovations for seawater desalination. I thought, and you can see the date on there, this is about a year and a half ago. I thought, think big, go big. What about a whole array of these things? What might that look like? And how can that be used? This is investigating markets, right? And so what you're looking at here is kind of, it's a concept and it's kind of a cool rendering. It's like engaging visually, but I actually built a reflector like this and I tested it on a prototype. I can't show you the photo because the prototype that I tested this on is in the latest and the greatest, and I can't disclose it, but this is vague enough that I can share it.
Okay.
The concept here was that, okay, the device sits out and it collects solar heat through the course of the day under what they would call one sun illumination. But what if I build a reflector on it? I mean, all of these solar energy technologies out there, they're doing heliostats. They're putting mirrors and they're using the mirrors. They have whole clusters and arrays of mirrors reflecting solar energy to a central point. Why? And these heliostats, what they do is they increase the solar energy that strikes a given unit area, and they increase the amount of solar heat that is being directed to the device. And so I thought, let's see what a reflector will do that will increase the heat. And so rather than having one sun illumination throughout the day, what happens if I have 6 sun illumination for just a narrow segment of the day, right? So let's say if the device gets 180 degrees Fahrenheit over the course of a day in one sun illumination, how hot does it get? If it's just being blasted for an hour or two in the middle of the day. Well, I melted my prototype. I destroyed my prototype. So it's inconclusive. I don't think this is the way to go. And in my opinion, I can't say too much on this, but there's a bias toward increasing heat. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the variables to increase yield. But there are other variables that can be pursued when it comes to evaporation. So I'll say that much.
Okay, so let's look at some of the questions coming from the audience. There's a question from Annie saying, can we DIY this design to generate water? So
so the short answer is, I mean, if you're really looking at this design specifically, the cover is going to be a real difficult thing to try to reproduce at home. The covers, both of those covers that you're seeing on the prototypes are manufactured. They are manufactured products. I mean, I had to find a specialty. It's like a glass art studio out in California to make this thing for me. The industrial people wouldn't give me the time of day. I had to go through an art studio, people who had time for me. And it was, so for this version, I would say not literally this, but if you look online and if you're interested in experimenting with solar stills, look at a single slope flat plate collector and you will just do a search on solar still and then do the image search there and see what turns up. You'll see many different designs. That's what I would recommend.
The uniqueness in your design is the way the water is being collected, right? The condensate goes concentrated into one place, and I guess that does that contribute to the quality of the water? I mean, the self-cleansing part.
I'm going to go out on a limb and be bold and say yes. So this you're really begging the question of other designs for solar stills. So what are we talking about? We're talking about distilled water, which is the universal solvent. And the more surfaces you have that distilled water running across, the more stuff it's going to pick up along the way. And so I'll start with flat plate collectors. So this is one of the big, you do a patent search, there are a bunch of flat plate collectors with an inclined slope. I almost wonder if I shouldn't get online and share my screen and just so we can look at this stuff visually. Give me a second.
So we're about 40 minutes in. For those of you, I see the numbers coming up and down. So if you've just joined us, we are talking about solar water purifiers, and Anthony was about to share some designs that you can DIY at home.
Right. This would be an example of a single slope, single basin solar still, and this is the condensing surface, and the condensate runs down there into the tube and then out. Here's another one. This is a variation on a dome. Sorry about. Oh, look at that! Someone's got a Pinterest page here. There's a
dome floats on the lake.
Yeah, they have one that floats on a lake, like for emergency use. I'm not going to try and blow this up because I'm kind of ruining your show here. But you can see the dome is a variation on this. The condensate flows down, and the term of art for this is an annular ring. And I think annular rings are problematic from a water quality point of view, in terms of what you're getting out of there. And I think they're problematic from a manufacturing point of view. Then there's a kind of, the third kind is what I'd call eclectic. And I'll show you an example of eclectic here. This would be an example of an eclectic still. I mean, you do the patent research, and there's just all kinds of people trying to use solar heat energy to evaporate water for purification purposes. So back to your question, the strength of my design is that the cover allows for efficient transport of the condensate within the device. I will add this. When you do research into the academic literature, there are university researchers that have published peer-reviewed articles on this stuff over the last 10, 15 years. South India seems to be a center of effort around solar stills. They're concerned about the angle of incidence of the sunlight. And so the flat plate collectors actually reflect a lot of solar heat energy away from the device. And if you think about the movement of the sun relative to the flat plate, then really over the course of the day, a flat plate fixed collector is going to really reflect a lot of solar energy out of it. The strength of this is that over the course of the day, you will tend to have more normal, or what I'll say perpendicular angles for the sun over the course of the day. Because the shape of it is an inverted cone and it's three-dimensionally, over the course of the day, the sun will generally be more normal to the device, theoretically bringing more solar energy into it. And I'll add that for that surface where the sun is striking against it, it actually will tend to reflect sunlight into the device, if that makes sense. So
I can't really tell from the pictures. So the sun is going into the device, and is the bottom surface reflective? No,
black. Yeah, universally, you want dark colors in there that absorb in the visible light spectrum and infrared.
Okay, so it's the cover that's working, that's collecting the heat from the sun and evaporating the water.
Good question. For such a simple, solar stills, they're very simple, but the thermodynamics, if you get into the academic papers, it's pretty complicated, or I'll just say complex. But the short answer is, you have solar light energy in the visible spectrum and in the infrared spectrum, which passes through the glass and strikes the surfaces on the interior. It's a similar phenomenon to your car. When you have your car parked outside on a hot day, your car gets hotter and hotter. What's happening inside your car and what's happening inside the still is that visible light energy, when it strikes the surface, is partially reflected. But if it's a dark energy absorbing surface, it is mostly not reflected. That visible light energy is converted to heat. It's converted to infrared light. And so the cover is doing a couple things there. So one, it's allowing heat through. It's allowing visible light through. It's allowing infrared light through. And then it's keeping it in. So that's one of the other functions of the cover, is to then keep the heat in. You can imagine if you prop the cover 1 inch off the basin, you're going to get convection through there and you're going to lose a lot of heat. So by having the sealed container, you're keeping the heat in. Since I'm on the subject of the cover, I'll add a third factor that makes it more complex. The cover needs to work as a condensing surface.
Yeah.
And so it needs to be cool enough to promote condensation. You put your cold beverage outside on the table next to you on a hot, humid day, and you have water collecting on your on your glass, on the container of your beverage. That
Yeah.
condensation happens because it's pulling heat into it, and as moisture laden air convects across the surface, that humidity, that water vapor will tend to condense because it's absorbing the heat that is keeping that water vapor in vapor. The same thing needs to happen here. You want that cover to be cool enough to promote condensation, and it does that by being cooler than what's on the interior. So the cover is doing a few different things for you at the same time.
So you're not even artificially cooling the cover, right? I mean, it works just.
No. In this, no, I'm not saying that you couldn't artificially cool it through. People have experimented with misting the top of the cover with light mist of water. People have experimented with convecting air across the exterior surface. And then there are some experiments where they're like lightly vibrating these things to encourage the bead formation of the condensate on the underside. So there are things you can do there, but I haven't experimented with it very much.
Yeah, it will just add complexity to the thing. You imagine balls outside your house vibrating a bit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So where are you going next? I mean, what can we expect in the upcoming months or days or even years?
The water purifier is getting about 20% of my time, not much dollars at all. And about 80% of my time is focused on my YouTube channel. And that is where I am developing the Fount Systems Pursuit. That is where I'm doing some promotion of the water purifier, but where I'm really doing market discovery. And I'm learning about, I'm educating myself. My background is in architecture. While I've always been more technically oriented, while I'm very sympathetic to green design and sustainability, I'm not an engineer. I'm not an environmental engineer. I'm not a water chemist, and I don't come from the water industry. So what I'm doing is I'm educating myself about water treatment markets. And I started with seawater desalination, which is how you found me. And I'm focused on industrial wastewater now. And so I'll share my channel here. You can see some of the content that I'm developing. The focus is, research into publications like authoritative publications, talking with experts in the industry, and just generally using the opportunity to educate others while I'm educating myself. So this is my focus right now. I will probably continue to pursue innovation funding here and there where I see a good fit. But this really gets the bulk of my effort. I've signed up for Class B and C wastewater operators licensure course. So sewage treatment plants. That's also taking some of my time these days.
Yeah. Okay. So, but for effluent treatment and even sewage water treatment, I mean, when you're applying your system, it does half the work, right? I mean, you still have to deal with whatever concentrate that is left, right? I mean, inside the basin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that one way to go is to get as many people to try and use the product. I mean, we are only imagining things that are going to happen, could happen, might happen when we're using the product, or rather the solar stills. I think personally you should get more people to try and use the product. I mean, to explore beyond just getting clean water, because that's quite clear, I think. I mean, if you're going in remote and arid areas, I think that's almost a no-brainer. You're getting free water for a one-time investment of a still. You can use it for 30 years, as you said just now. So what are the plans for getting these industries to try? I mean, one of the challenges that I see is that one single unit is small, but it's resilient, like you said just now, but it also requires some resilience on the user part, because if I'm treating industrial wastewater and I need 100 basins, so it'd be kind of labor intensive to maintain 100 basins. So where do you see that going?
I don't have a value proposition yet, and that's where I'm doing my research with the industrial wastewater. I'm looking for a point of entry. And if in this pursuit I find a point of entry that has nothing to do with this water purifier, I'm okay with that. I know you want to hear that I'm committed for the rest of my life to this water purifier, and I am prepared to acknowledge that it was a mistake, and I'm prepared to be moving on, like hundreds of people have done before me. Like if you look at all these patents, I would love to have some kind of resource that tells all of their stories about all of the work and that other people have put into solar stills. I think there's a reason why there's very, very little on the market. I can show you the ones that are on the market if you want to see it. But I'm not giving up on it either. So I'm kind of, like I say, it's about 80-20, or maybe it's 90-10. 90% I'm doing this market research, 10% I still work on the solar still. And I'm not giving up on it yet. With the channel, I have an asset here. So it's good for marketing and branding. We know that. But someday if I have a good value proposition, get funded, and have a company, well, this is already the marketing and communications part of the company is already kind of established with some degree of followership. It can also be a resource if I go crowdfunding. So I have a few different approaches going on at the same time. And so if I crowdfund the development of the device, you might see that in the next year. I may decide to do that if the market research into industrial wastewater doesn't work out.
Well, one possible route is because your product is so unique, then you probably want to explore some unique situations where people are in. Like we were the other day, we were talking about exploring cottage industries, right? Where they do produce industrial effluents, but not in such a large volume. So maybe we could go, explore that kind of collaboration, right?
I would welcome the opportunity. What I've learned so far about the United States, anyway, is that industrial wastewater, it's a pretty developed industry. And since the Clean Water Act of 1972, industry in the United States has really been compelled to clean up their wastewater. And there's a lot of suppliers of chemicals and equipment and human capital development where a lot of these companies, they are heavily vested in their existing wastewater treatment in-house already. I mean, it's kind of amazing. And that's some of my, you'll see that in some of the episodes here. I do think that, for example, with leather tanneries in India or the batik dyeing shops that you described to me in Kelantan, in environments where the regulatory environment is needs more work, and where manufacturers and industry are discharging wastewater into the environment in smaller quantities, I think that there are going to be opportunities there. And I don't know that the American solution is going to be exportable to other settings. So yeah, that's part of my pursuit. Like, yes, you're touching on part of my field of interest there, is that, there are a lot of wastewater problems around the world. And just like there are, like 60 categories of industry in the United States, all with different wastewater treatment problems, those same categories exist in all these other parts of the world. And similar kind of chemistries, but, very different environment as far as how they're handling it. And so I think there are opportunities there. Absolutely. I would love to do that.
When we look at TikTok and Instagram, those people that are probably having a home-based business, making tie-dyes and silk scarf and things like that, they will also produce and instead of pouring their dyes down into the sink, maybe this is a more feasible solution for them, because I don't think that this kind of small home-based businesses will be it will not be feasible for them to be treating their water in a proper industrial kind of treatment system. But I
Sure.
think this would be something that would be applicable and at the same time feasible. I mean, in its uniqueness.
I think the device the water purifier. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a product that you sell to someone. It can be part of a value proposition, a proprietary technology that a company owns and operates to provide water purification services. And what you're describing, I mean, we can take the United States. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm American. I have to keep using this example. In the U.S., there are very difficult kinds of wastewater. And then there are water services companies with very specialized trucks. And they go to these companies and they pick up the really weird toxic stuff. And they haul that water, I don't know how far, 500 miles, 1,000 miles, and they take it to their specialty facilities. There's one in Miami, for example, named Cliff Berry. And they just, their permit just deals with all kinds of monitoring. But my point being is that there's a business model where you go and you pick up the wastewater from people. And, while I don't know if it involves, large vacuum tanker trucks, but there probably is a way to pick up wastewater, take it to a central location and treat it there and offer that as a service. And yeah. I mean, I think you're kind of getting at some of that. What does a business model look like in Kelantan or, Hyderabad?
Yeah, because the problem with Kelantan is that the individual sites are not big enough for them to actually invest in a proper treatment system. But at the same time, they're not willing to share. I mean, they don't want to be clustered together, and that itself makes it a unique situation where this kind of solutions will be something that is probably very, very effective for them. And most of the time, these small industries they are one person or one family, which your system or this kinds of system which does not have moving parts, does not have added chemicals, and it runs itself. And so yeah, I mean, yes, it's unique on unique on unique, and yeah, I feel that I really feel that we should get more of it out there to get people to try it. Then that's when more ideas get poured in, and the idea itself can mature and grow. Yeah,
you're getting at the crowdfunding campaign side of things. So I don't. Have you ever Have you ever seen anyone go live with a new tech, or like on Indiegogo or Kickstarter?
I've seen, but I've not done it myself. So yeah.
Well, what they're doing is they're selling the first consumer products that are brought to market, and they're using it. They're using the medium or the format to, one, raise money, but also to sell the first products. And so it's a way to kind of get products to market that you wouldn't find like on your grocery store shelf or your department store shelf. And so there is a component of that. I haven't really put this in a business plan or anything, but yes, I do think in a crowd-funded approach where you are, selling, 500 units at X dollars each. If you then you have 500 people who are going to be out there tinkering with it, and those are the people on these crowdfunding sites. I think they like their gear, and they're like the quote unquote early adopters and the mavens and stuff. So, I mean, I think what you're describing there, just as far as getting it out there and maybe finding uses for it, I think that's probably the approach. And then, and they invest in it, so they're kind of wedded to the idea to whatever extent that commits them.
Yeah. We see this video on Facebook where you have this like a cube thing where you put in the kitchen, then whatever leftover foods you put inside, and the next day you get some fertilizer. I haven't seen it, but yeah, I think that could work. Get people to work on it, get people to talk about it, get people to crowdfunding anyway. Yep, it's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about the textile dyeing operations in Kelantan, it begs the question. So you have a dozen family-owned cottage industry shops, and they're discharging their wastewater, or maybe they're not handling it properly, they're putting it in the sewer or whatever. But there's a problem that needs to be solved. So let's say you have the business there, and you're going to set up accounts with those dozen. Let's say all 12 of them sign up. You're going to pick up their wastewater on a periodic basis, and you're going to take it to your shop. Now, I am agnostic about this. I don't know that the solar-powered water purifier is the right thing, but let's say it is. You're going to take that water and you're going to introduce it in the basin, and you're going to separate the water, and you'll discharge the purified water, and that will go somewhere. You will discharge it in the environment. You'll put it in the sewer. You'll drink it. I don't know what. But then you have the solids at the bottom of the basin. What would you do with the solids at the bottom of the basin? You have are toxic dyes, probably fabric, like bits of fabric, organic matter, CBOD,
wax.
Yeah. So then you say, how are we going to get it out of the basin? I mean, probably you're going to have someone, unless we come up with a way to do it automatically. In this version, it's not automatic, but then you're going to scrape it out of the basin. What you have there is dewatered sludge, would be cut, dewatered chemical sludge. And so from there, would you be able to package that up safely and send it to the landfill, or where would it go from there?
Okay, so what's happening right now is that the water is going directly into the ground. Mm-hmm. So whatever alternative is better.
Yeah. Yes. Is there a landfill? I mean, but really, it's a real question. I mean, is there a landfill around? I mean, what would you do with the solids?
Well, seeing that it's toxic, if you look at it in a legal standpoint, it's required for a proper contractor to come and pick it up, and it goes to a proper treatment facility, which will either go into a sanitary landfill or some chemical treatment to make it non-toxic, or even incinerated. I don't know, but right. Yeah, the what's happening right now, it's going into the ground, and if we were able to reduce the volume, that would reduce the cost, because if you have to drive it, like you say, 50 miles, 500 miles, if you're transporting large volumes of what essentially is water, I think it's not an entire solution, but it solves half the problem. So yeah, right. It's a good start.
That's optimistic. That's wonderful. What I'm having fun with the industrial wastewater is that you have a variety. You have a series of steps that are designed to treat the particular kind of waste you're dealing with. And so you have wax, you have dyes, you have CBOD in the form of whatever fabrics, and you're going to treat each of those in individual steps. And so the way they would kind of handle that in the US is they'd have a special piece of gear and a special step for each of those contaminants in order to get the water to a reasonable quality. The interesting thing about the water purifier is you're treating it all as chemical sludge. You're removing the water, and you're taking it to the landfill. And so there's a kind of advantage to just getting the water out of it, I think, and keeping it out of the groundwater, and taking that whole mess to the mixture to the landfill.
It's 80% of the solution. I think really, we should just go there and give it a go.
Okay. I'm open to different approaches. I really love that you're engaged with the idea and you see an application. It's very encouraging to me, Shazran. So I really want to thank you for the time and the attention you're giving to it. That's really it's encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, this problem has been there for the last 30, 40 years, and there are so many approaches that people have done. So many proposals on how to treat it, but I've not. It's either too expensive or too complicated. So this meets both problems halfway. So I think it's worth a try.
This is part of the marketing work that I was trying to do, and you did half of it for me here on this idea.
Well, anyway, we are a little bit over time here,
Mhm.
so maybe a few final thoughts from you before I wrap up.
Thank you thank you for taking the time to host today. I really appreciate it. It's affirming. You put together, I put together YouTube videos and content, and some, they don't get a lot of views sometimes, and it's encouraging to be seen and heard and to participate with a community of people who are also interested in the same stuff. So again, thank you. Um, Beyond that, I would do it all again. I would do things a little more efficiently. If I'm talking about the mistakes I've made, I would do it again, but I I would not have gone to patent right away. But with the design I have in mind right now, I would go to patent with. And then on the marketing side, I have narrowed it down. And we keep returning to this crowdfunding of a consumer device. So yeah, I mean, I do feel like progress is being made, and I'm kind of doing it in the way that no one recommends, but I'm learning. So
All right. Thank you, Tony. Anyway, thank you for appearing today. And I do also want to say, me and Punita and Siva, we always say how to get the show going is to always be wowed by your guest. And today, I found myself wanting to listen more about the invention and how it works, and uh, because of that, I'm not doing a good job as a moderator because I'm too I'm too caught up with what you're saying. So yeah, so forgive me for not leading leading the conversation very very well today. But yeah, anyway, thank you.
I enjoyed our conversation. I hope the viewers did too. And I'm
Yeah,
going to go back and look at it on YouTube. I'll share it on my channel for sure.
all right, thank you everyone for spending time with us, with me and Tony. So hope to see you again in the next episode on Water Think Tank. Good night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Terima kasih.